The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. As Jesus came down from the mountain with Peter, James, and John, and approached the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them, and scribes arguing with them. Immediately on seeing him, the whole crowd was utterly amazed. They ran up to him and greeted him. He asked them, "What are you arguing about with them?" Someone from the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I have brought to you my son, possessed by a mute spirit. Wherever it seizes him, he throws him down. He foams at the mouth, grinds his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive it out, but they were unable to do so." He said to them in reply, "O faithless generation, how long will I be with you? How long will I endure you? Bring him to me." They brought the boy to him. And when he saw him, the spirit immediately threw the boy into convulsions. As he fell to the ground, he began to roll around and foam at the mouth. Then he questioned his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" He replied, "Since childhood. It has often thrown him into fire and into water to kill him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." Jesus said to him, "If you can, everything is possible to one who has faith." Then the boy's father cried out, "I do believe, help my unbelief." Jesus, on seeing a crowd rapidly gathering, rebuked the unclean spirit and said to it, "Mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." Shouting and throwing the boy into convulsions, it came out. He became like a corpse, which caused many to say, "He is dead." But Jesus took him by the hand, raised him, and he stood up. When he entered the house, his disciples asked him in private, "Why could we not drive the spirit out?" He said to them, "This kind can only come out through prayer." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise be Jesus and Mary. He said to them, "This kind can only come out through prayer." Brothers and sisters, in our gospel today, we see that Jesus was in some way looking for the faith. Di ba sabi sa kanta, you have to have a faith. You have to have a faith. And this episode of the Gospel, alalahanin po ninyo, if I'm not mistaken, in the Gospel of Mark, this happened after the transfiguration of Jesus on the mountain. And his disciples, as we heard in the Gospel today, were discussing with the scribes and the crowd, because how can it be we cannot able to send the evil spirit out? And according to some commentators, this is regarding a so-called epilepsy, but it is more than epilepsy. Why? Because epilepsy, it only make the person convulse, and foam. But it will not put a man in a fire, or in a water to kill him. So mismong yung tatay ng bata nagsabi na hindi siya sakit lang physically, it is also spiritually, because that convulsion really wants to kill the child. And thanks be to God, the child is still alive. Only that the father, as we have heard in the gospel, already lose faith. Parang nawalan na siya ng pag-asa, nawalan na siya rin, hindi lang faith, kundi hope, that his child will be healed. Sabi nga niya, but if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. That's why Jesus said, if you can. Parang sinasabi ni Lord dun sa tatay, ang ibig mong sabihin, kung kaya ko. So the word of Jesus already showed that the father becomes hopeless. Minsan, ganun din tayo. Sabihin natin, Lord, sige na lang, bahala ka na, ayoko na, hindi ko na kaya. There's a big difference between trusting God and being hopeless. Sometimes we think we are trusting and yet we are hopeless. Lord, sabihin natin, yung asawa ko, yung anak ko, bahala ka na. Wala na akong magagawa eh. Ikaw nang gumawa. In our ear, it seems a trust. But it is hopelessness. If you can, sige na, Father. Sige na, Lord. Ikaw na. See? But inside that word, we are already hopeless. Para bang, na tayo? Suko na tayo. Suko na ako, Lord. Is it good? Well, to tell you frankly, yes, it is good in a certain point. But it is dangerous because it tends to belittle our faith. Pinapaliit niya yung ating pananampalataya. Just like the father. Katulad ng tatay sa gospel. Sabi niya, ulitin ko ulit, Sabi niya, but if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. But if, remember the proposition if, di ba? When the proposition if is put in a sentence, it means what? Kushi-kushi. Sabi nga sa Italian, kushi-kushi. It is not a trust. So hopeless na yung tatay. And Jesus, in some way, rebuked him. Di ba? Jesus said, if you can, and in the gospel, in the verse, it has a exclamation point. Hindi tuldok, hindi question mark, but exclamation. If you can. So Jesus said, what? You do not trust me? Wala kang tiwala sa akin? So at the same time, my brothers and sisters, parang katulad tayo ng tatay ng bata. Lord, magbabago pa ba yung bansa namin? Pagkatapos ng eleksyon, magbabago ba yung aming lipunan, aming barangay, yung Naga City, magbabago kaya? Ang Camarines Sur, magbabago kaya? Pagkatapos ng eleksyon? Jesus said, no. Why do you trust in them? Trust in me. Bakit kayo nagtitiwala sa mga Of course, may magagawa din sila. Pero, ang importante ay yung magagawa ko. What God can do to us. So mag-ingat po tayo, mga brothers and sisters, mga tugang. Let us be careful to equate abandon and hopelessness. Huwag nating pag-isahin kasi magkaiba yung abandonment and trust in God at yung hopelessness. Even, tama-tama, no? We are celebrating today St. Peter Damian. If you live in the time of St. Peter Damian, you will be hopeless. You will be hopeless. Why? Because in the time of St. Peter Damian, there were many scandals of the church. Scandal dito, scandal doon. No? And even the Pope seems hopeless. No? Even the Pope seems hopeless. St. Peter Damian, what did he do? No? He prayed. Yan. Alam niyo po, ang susi sa lahat ay panalangin. Just like what Jesus said. No? This kind can only come out through prayer. Yung ating pagdarasal. No? And St. Peter Damian, who is also, if I'm not mistaken, a Benedictine, no? A religious, no? He prayed and he had the courage to correct all the priests, no? To correct even the bishops regarding their scandal. No? Kita niyo, kapag ang isang tao ay tunay na nagdadasal, sabi nga sa Bicol, nangangadji, namimibig kita, we will have the strength to abandon to God. Ayun yung pagkakaiba. The difference between hopelessness and abandonment to God is what? Prayer. Prayer. Kaya nga, wag po kayong makikinig doon sa sinasabi ng ibang tao. Don't believe and don't put in your mind what the other people said. Oh, simba ka ng simba, baka lumagpas ka na sa langit niyan. Dasal ka ng dasal. Pero saan ba napupunta yung dasal mo? Doon. Huwag po kayo maniwala. Because prayer, the Mass, no, help us to abandon to God. Help us to liven up our faith. Itaas yung ating pananampalataya. No? Kaya nga yung mga tao na hindi palasimba, yung mga taong hindi talagang nagdadasal, tendency, katulad ng tatay, dito sa gospel, they become hopeless. And you know, napaka-delikado po, no? Sabi, all the time, you know, it's a little bit dangerous. Delikado po yung hopelessness. Because, saan papunta ang hopelessness, brothers and sisters? Sa despair. Then after despair, ano na? Suicide. Kapag ang isang tao ay hopeless, no? Ano mangyayari? Depression, despair, and then goodbye. I hate to see you go. Have a good time. Kaya nga, mga brothers and sisters, labanan natin itong hopelessness and let us pray. No? Kaya nga, tinatanong ko minsan, no? Yung ibang mga ka-brothers and sisters, ilang oras ka ba nagdadasal? Ilang oras ba kayo nagdadasal? Kayo po, mga nakikinig sa atin sa radio, tanongin nyo sarili nyo, ilang oras po akong nagdadasal sa araw-aldaw, every day? How many hours do I pray? And if I'm not mistaken, St. Alphonsus Maria de Ligori, one of my favorite saint, sabi ni St. Alphonsus, no, your time in prayer determines your faith in God. Kung gaano ka katagal nagdadasal, ganun din kalaki ng iyong pananampalataya. Kaya nga, if I'm not mistaken, St. Peter Damian, St. John Bosco, St. Francis, no? Instead of sleeping, they pray all night. Nangangadji sila. Tayo, naku po, ang katamad, no? Ang sakit, may sakit sa katam, no? Sabi nga, may sakit sa katamaran, at sakit sa batugan, no? Magdadasal lang tayo kapag tayo ay nangangailangan. Pag wala na tayong kailangan kay Lord, tayo na tayo magdadasal. Yung iba dyan, hindi ko nga alam kung nagsisimba pa, no? Yung iba, no? Nakukontent na, nakikinig naman ako sa radyo, pero distracted. Ngayon pa po yun, no? Yung ba yung nakikinig ka sa radyo na talagang attention ka, sa distracted ka, no? And you are doing it only for work, no? Minsan hindi na natin may differentiate, no? Minsan umadala sasabihin pa ng iba, yung pagdatrabaho ko, prayer naman din yun, di ba? Abi ba, yung apostolate, prayer din pa yun, di ba? Totoo, correct. Totoo naman. Yung apostolate is also a prayer. But, yun na. But, pero datapwat, subalit, bagamat, our apostolate, no, is fruit of our prayer. No? Sa lahat ng mga, no, religious, sa lahat ng mga padi, remember, our apostolate, even friars especially, no, our apostolate must be the fruit of our prayer. Even tertiaries, even meme, even youth, even choir. So if we do not have the proper prayer, what will happen to our apostolate? Mangyayari katulad nito. Kita nyo? Yung mga disciples, akala nila, mapapalis na nila yung demonyo, yung apostolate. Even without prayer. Kaya pinagsabihan sila ni Lord, sabi ni Lord sa kanila, pambihira kayo. Gagawa kayo ng apostolate, day pa kamo nangangadji, nagdadasal. Wala kayong prayer. Kaya mag-ingat po tayo, mga brothers and sisters, na ating mga nakikinig sa atin sa radio. Do not presume. No? Alam niyo po, napakahirap ng presumption. No? Maraming mga Katoliko, Kristiyano, minsan nasa simbahan, they presume, anyway, kumakanta naman ako. Anyway, no, nasa radio naman ako, DJ naman ako. Anyway, technical naman ako. Anyway, station manager naman ako. Anyway, don't presume na dahil may ginagawa ka, no, kaya mo nang iwanan ng prayer. No? And that is what the devil is waiting. No? Yun ang hinihintay ng demonyo. No? Alam nyo, matalino ang demonyo. No? Pag nalaman niya na bumaba ang iyong prayer life, doon ka niya aatakihin. No? When the devil knew, no, pag nalaman ng demonyo na ikay bumaba sa iyong pagdarasal at naging busy ka na sa maraming bagay, unti-unti ka na niyang, no, unti-unti ka na niyang hahatakin, no, pababa. No. Kaya nga, mag-ingat po tayo, brothers and sisters. Let us seek always to pray, no, and to abandon trust in God. Let us ask St. Peter Damian to help us, no, to not to be hopeless, but to abandon to God and to pray every day so that our faith may grow and we will overcome every desperation. No? we will overcome hopelessness. Praise be Jesus and Mary. Ave Maria. If you like this video, subscribe and share. Ave Maria.